It is our honor to recognize Brigadier General Murray as a 2023 College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Alumni. We recently had a chance to speak with him over Zoom about what this honor means to him.
You always wanted to be a doctor, always wanted to be in the Army, but take me back to what compelled you to serve, not only as a doctor serves and, helping patients, but, serve your country, serve, soldiers, taking care. What was it that kind of shaped that?
We live in an amazing country. And how do you not think about giving back to this amazing country? And if you're going to give back, what more noble way to do that than as a physician that serves our country in the Army? And not that everyone needs to serve in the military, but I think everyone needs to give back to the broader organization, whether it's your community, your city, your state, your country, your world. How do we serve and give back? And I think that's really what it is. I would have never argued that I had a servant heart growing up. My parents were missionary kids. They both grew up in Africa. So it should have been obvious that I had a servant heart. It should have been obvious I was going to be an ID doc, with them both growing up in Africa and telling me all these stories when I was a kid. Not that I lived in Africa, but I heard all the stories. But in here, I was never going to be a preacher. I was never going to be a teacher, but this is probably the next best way. And I still think probably the three most noble professions out there is healthcare, serving in our military, and being an educator. And the beauty of what I got to do in military medicine is I got to, and I do all three of those every day. So when I wake up and look in the mirror, I can go, I'm having a great day. And I hope, and I think I'm making a difference on the broader scale.
Excellent. Very good. What sort of advice would you give graduates of the Arts and Sciences College that have military aspirations, or just your general arts and sciences student? What sort of life advice would you give as they?
Find out what you're passionate about. I think you should find out what you're passionate about and do that, right? Some people work so they can do their passions, but if you can make your passion your work, you should. People ask me, when am I going to quit doing what I'm doing? Well, I'm passionate about it. What else would I do? I wake up and it's just what I love doing. So if you can be passionate about your career, I think you'll be incredibly happy. I think the other thing is I go back to, if you live in a place of high character and commitment and competence and caring, I think you're going to have a good life. And you may not make the most amount of money. You may not live in New York City. You may get to hang out in West Texas and have a great time, which my wife and I would love to move back to Lubbock, Texas. But how do you actually do that? I think it comes back to find what you're passionate about and do it. And then for me, I've always come back to my priorities, and my priority has been pretty consistent for a long time now. It's sort of my faith, my family, and then serving others. And I can serve others as a physician or an Army officer or an educator. And if you can line your passions with your priorities, life gets pretty easy pretty quickly. When those get out of balance, then I think you struggle a little bit. Now, I would argue I was not this insightful when I was 18 and 20. I'm argue I'm probably gonna be 10 years from now and go, I wasn't insightful in 10 years as I am now. But I do look at it and say, what do I want to be like in 10 years from now? And I do try to sort of make sure I'm living my life to meet that goal of what do I want to look like, not necessarily what I want to do, but what's my why? What's my why I'm here? And that's probably the other thing is, what's your why personally, and then what's your why professionally? And if they align, then great. But I do think understanding your why really does help. And there's some great people that talk about this, some great books, but it does give you some context.
And as someone who's been decorated on a number of fronts your entire career, how does this honor of being honored as a distinguished alumni in the College of Arts and Sciences?
This one is really surprising. I'm not sure who nominated me. I'm not sure how my name got in there, right? So when I got this email saying, hey, in 6 weeks, we're going to give you this award. And I'm like, what do you mean in 6 weeks? And then I went, what do you mean award? Anyway, I was actually in another country at a meeting, and my assistant, who sort of takes care of my entire life and makes sure I get from point A to point B in the right way, said, we got great news for you. So she sent me the email and I couldn't open it. I'm like, what do you mean you have great news for me? But it's just so exciting, but really it's just humbling. But probably more importantly, it reflects on what really Lubbock and Texas Tech established and built in me way back when that allowed over 30 plus years since then to actually blossom and grow into something that has the opportunity to even be considered for this. So it really is, it is pretty great. I'm not sure that person that lived on 72nd Street, and just to joke, we were talking earlier about the sandstorms and the winds of West Texas. I've seen some winds here in Europe, but they don't compete there. But I remember living on 72nd. At the end of the road, it was all cotton fields, right? And it was back when there was nothing stopping the wind. This was 72nd and Slide and the Brownfield Highway. And every year we'd have about 3 inches of dirt in our yard, and we'd have to dig all the dirt out and replant our grass, kind of story. Not quite that, but that's what it felt like. So anyway, you're sitting there going, I lived in a place where tumbleweeds were piled up next to our fence, and dust was everywhere. We didn't dust because if you moved anything, you had to dust the whole house. To now, winning this award is pretty exciting and very humbling.
We probably will now turn it over to you to make a acceptance speech, if you will.
So it truly is an honor to be here. I want to start off by just apologizing that I can't be there in person. We did look at how long it takes me to fly from Germany back there, and it's 20 hours one way. So that's 40 hours to get there and back for a 3-hour dinner. Not that I wouldn't do it, but I'm actually hosting my own conference this week in southern Germany, and just can't make it. But there's no place I'd rather be than Lubbock, Texas. My wife Leanne was born there. I moved there in 2nd grade, and it truly is our home. So for us to come there, everything we can do, we try to get back home, because it really is great. And not that it hasn't changed since the 70s, but it really is an awesome place. I want to thank really the committee that got to look at my name and got to vote. It's greatly appreciated. It's incredibly exciting. It's also very humbling for a person that moved to Lubbock, Texas in 2nd grade when my dad became the athletic trainer at Texas Tech. And to really grow up in Lubbock and to have your character and sort of who you are shaped by going to elementary school and junior high and high school all in the same town is impressive. And truthfully, I would argue Texas Tech, really Jones Stadium, was my home away from home. Every summer and pretty much every weekend, my mom was more than happy to put my brother and I, John Murray, with my dad at a stadium. And back then you could just run amok and no one cared. There was no rules. I won't tell you what beams we crawled and ran around. If you look at Jones Stadium, if you look at those first rows of beam, we used to play tag on those beams. I can't believe my daughters would clearly not be allowed to do that now. But it really sort of grew up who I was, because I got to hang out with student athletes all day and sort of see how they looked at life, and got to sort of evaluate Tech. And I think Tech was really the only college I was going to go to. I knew that, and it ended up being a great experience, because what you want at a university, Tech gave me, right? It gave me great colleagues and classmates to work with. And it gave you incredible professors that got you ready for life. And I knew I wanted to be a physician then. So I went mostly to do biochemistry. And I was lucky enough to have just an amazing mentor there. And he was also my academic advisor. Jerry Mills, he passed away, I think, in 2005. He's just one of those, again, I would argue, a servant leader who coached, taught, and mentored me to be effective. And what was really exciting is he also sponsored me, right? So, he wrote my letter of recommendation for college, but he also nominated me to be an ambassador for the College of Arts and Science. And I'm pretty sure they're probably there at that event this evening. But interestingly, the one event that I was in charge of as that ambassador was actually this event. It's what I was in charge of. I was actually the one that picked the hotel and the ballroom. I'm the one that picked the meal. I'm the one that was the MC who introduced another ambassador who introduced the recipients. And I remember at the end of that dinner, and I wish I could remember all the names. I do know that Mayor Alan Henry's wife was one of them, because I introduced her completely wrong and embarrassed myself to death during that event. But I recovered. But I remember at the end of that event going, I can't imagine I could be even considered for an event, for a recognition like this. When you hear the stories of those people, it was truly impactful of what they did and what Tech pushed into them, and what Lubbock, Texas pushed into them to be successful. It was very exciting for me. So for me to get this recognition is very surprising, very exciting, very humbling, because I have that servant heart. As a physician in the Army, as a professor of medicine in the Army, and now as a general officer, everything I do is about serving something other than myself, serving my patients, serving my country, deploying into harm's way in Iraq and Afghanistan. So for that to result in a recognition like this award, it means more than you can imagine. Is I think one of the things that tech really did that enabled this to happen is it taught me this concept of intelligence. And we talk about IQ all the time, and your IQ is what gets you through high school into college, and then your IQ, your brain power, gets you through college, and for me, medical school, and then medical school into residency, and residency into fellowship. But as you move along that line, and then the rest of your life, there's other forms of intelligence that are probably more impactful in what influence you can have on other people's lives. And that's your emotional intelligence, your EQ, your adversity intelligence, your AQ, and then probably your moral intelligence, your MQ. And I think that's where tech really started to instill those concepts into me. My brain power is my brain power, but it's that, how do you interact with folks? What's your character? How do you have a caring heart? And that's where your EQ and your AQ and your MQ. And if you're a physician, or you're serving the Army, your emotional adversity and clearly your moral intelligence are going to be pushed. And I think the foundation that Lubbock and that Texas Tech gave enabled me to be effective. And again, it's incredibly exciting, but also very humbling to get this. So truly, thank you to Tech and Lubbock for doing this. The other folks I have to say thanks to are my parents. I hope they're there. They told me they were going to come to this event, which would be awesome if they were actually able to make it. I wouldn't be here with them. And I mean, it's all obvious that I wouldn't be here without them. But in addition, I wouldn't have this servant heart and this character and my commitment to serving others as a physician, because my dad was the athletic trainer at Tech, and then as an educator, my mom was a junior high and high school teacher in Lubbock, and then the servant nature as an Army officer. The other person I have to thank is my brother. He got his master's degree at Tech. He's that sort of quiet, silent person in your life that's always there to support you and build you up, which is great. And then I have two amazing daughters. They're now 26 and 24, mostly out on their own. The older one graduated from Tech too. So you can see sort of a family trend here. My wife went to A&M, so it is what it is. But I have two amazing daughters. They continue to just teach and mentor me. They told me what I should talk about during this speech. So if it's not a good speech, we'll talk about this to my daughters. And then the person I have to thank the most is my wife. Again, we met at Hutchinson Junior High. We started dating when we were 15, which means my dad drove us on our first date. It was a homecoming dance. We still have the picture. It's really embarrassing. It may be actually shown tonight. It's what braces short hair and an awkward, and you can see this hair versus the hair back then was a bit different. But we got married, and we've been married for 31 plus years. And what you want in someone in your life that is just there, that is the rock, this is the foundation, your sounding board. And what's amazing about Leanne is she's the one that continues to invoke wisdom and understanding in my life. And none of this would be possible. None of those successes that result in sort of being successful as a military officer and a physician would have happened without her. So I have to especially thank her. So again, thank you all for being here this evening, and thank you for this recognition. It truly means more than I could ever put into words, and it's very humbling to be considered. And I am sorry I couldn't be there, but 40 hours of flight and miss my own meeting was just something I couldn't do. So anyway, y'all have a great evening, and thank you very much.
Accepting the award on behalf of Brigadier General Murray is his father, Ken Murray.